introduction. That's Scott Williams.
Am
Am
I already seen on camera?
Excuse me.
Yep, already seen on camera.
What? I've been here 2 minutes and Donna goes already.
She gets very nervous. You know,
She knows.
For a password.
Okay, then hello Gerry, hello Donna, and it's lovely to see both of you, and I hope Adelaide's treating you fairly, although we do miss you up here in Queensland.
Thank you, Mr.
And I got your coffee.
Yes.
I got your coffee you sent, so thank you. I made it up this morning.
And a latte with no sugar?
I added my own milk, but I love the idea of you sending me my little coffee bag with your face on it. And BSD. Yeah, it was a lovely touch. I'm sure nobody else got it, but I did, obviously.
Just you, because you know how special you are to us.
Yeah, I am special.
That's for sure. It's funny. I want to talk about Jude.
You have dragged me away. You have dragged me away from my gurneying and all my other household chores that I haven't done for years. And now that I'm home, I'm gurneying the driveway. I am, doing so much stuff. My pool looks immaculate because I check it every day with my little litmus tests. And so, it's out of every adversity comes the seed of a greater benefit.
And is Angie just loving that? You're getting everything done?
Look, funnily enough, she does, because, the old adage of, when you ask a man to do something around the house, you don't have to remind him every 6 months. And it's true. I mean, so often she says, look, this has to be done. And I go, yes, look, I know I'm home for 2 days, and then I get home and I'm exhausted, and then I fly out again to wherever I might be going in the world. And so now that I'm home permanently, there's just so much going on.
And is it like a scroll of things to be done?
Yeah, we have the only thing I ask is that we have a fridge list, and no, because I forget. So there's no point in doing anything. Just put it on the list. So I say a fridge list, put on the list, and then I cross it off, and I feel rewarded myself as I cross it off, and she feels rewarded as she walks past the fridge and go, has he done that? And then goes and checks and goes, oh, that's my beautiful husband.
That's my guy. It's funny. There's a couple of things that we've enjoyed from your presentations over the year.
Just a couple?
Just a couple that have become family isms. It'd be like
Google.
The classic one. I wasn't feeling so well, so I told myself a joke I hadn't heard before. or feeling that reassuring arm on my shoulder, and when I looked around, it was mine.
And I love the fact that you still sign off as Dougal on your emails, Debbie, because we both became fans of Father Ted, the TV series, and he reminded me so much of Dougal that I called him Dougal, and of course, we all love Father Ted.
And didn't you have a picture when Gerry ever rang that it was actually a picture of Dougal?
Yeah, look, as everybody knows, I love Photoshop. I love fiddling with all things computer, and so there's no doubt I probably airbrushed him into something. Probably Father Hackett sitting in the chair.
That's more like it.
That's how I'm going to be after 3 months of lockdown.
You've got the chair first.
I do.
There you go. That's like I wasn't even going to go down this path, but I was thinking about the time when you were in New York, when you were heading off to the Apple store.
Do you still remember that story?
Oh, yeah. It just popped into my head then.
Go and share that.
Well, look, Angie and I were in Trump Tower in Columbus Circle in Manhattan, and we were having a romantic weekend in New York. I think we were traipsing around the area, and I woke up and I said to Angie, I'll go and get us some muffins. And she goes, that'd be great. Muffins and coffee. We start the day in America. And so I headed off. And as I was heading off, I ended up, heading towards the Apple store, as you do. And the Apple store was all locked off. And I said to somebody, what's going on here? Because there was quite a large crowd. And they said, Eddie Murphy was making a movie. And I'm an Eddie Murphy fan. So I said, is he here? And they said, yeah, he's just over there. And I couldn't see properly because of the crowd. So I went round another sort of area and climbed through some bushes to try and get a better look. And when I climbed out the other side of the bushes, I found myself in a roped off area, which was actually designated to extras. And so I just stood there with the extras, and somebody came up to me and the rest of the extras and said, "Okay, I need 5 people for a close up with Eddie. You, and you." And he pointed to me. And I said, "Sure, what do you want us to do?" I had my camera over my shoulder. And so for the next hour and a half, I worked on this movie set outside the Apple store. And I came back like an hour and a half or so later, and Angie goes, "Where have you been?" And I said, "Chill out, woman. I've been working with Eddie Murphy." And so in the end, the movie was called Dave, and it was Eddie Murphy as a minute man living inside Eddie Murphy's brain. And so I waited another year until the movie was released to see whether I'd actually made it. And if you look carefully outside the Apple store, you can just see me walk by. It's like a 10-second glimpse. And I used to put it on in the show, and I'd slow it down so with a big arrow going, "There he is." So that was my claim to fame. But I did at least make it onto on the big screen.
Hollywood, you should have been given the credit for that.
Yeah.
Oh, look, you know me. Humility in the face of brilliance remains my greatest asset.
That's right. Yeah.
For sure. Don't be agreeing with them.
Yes, questions.
Questions. I wanted to go down. There's probably a couple of questions there, but I did want to go down memory lane with that road trip we did with you.
You don't mean questions from people that might be watching?
Yeah.
Oh, they're just saying hello.
I'll get Angie onto that in the other room. That man is brilliant. I've seen him before.
Too many times.
Okay, go on.
All right. So what is it? This road trip. There was a time when I booked you to go to Casino, which is a small country. Those who don't know, small country town, just the other side of the Queensland border. And you said to me, "If I'm going, you're coming with me." Right?
That's right, because you said to me, "I've got a booking for you," and I said, "That's great." I said, "Where is it?" Thinking Sydney, Melbourne, Bali, somewhere nice. And he goes, "Windara Tea Rooms in Casino." And I said, "I'm not sure you can fly into Casino." And he said, "You can't. You've got to drive." And I said, "Well, if I'm going, you're coming with me." And I have to say, we ended up with this little group of people. It must have been about 150 there, maybe, put on by a local business that had brought in all of his clients and friends and family. And it was just a fantastic night. We laughed, we shared, we had our scones when we arrived at sort of 6 o'clock, and it was just a wonderful experience. And I think we ended up doing 3 more years until I reached the point where I said, "Look, I've got no more material."
I've got nothing.
Book somebody else.
Yeah, didn't you go back to taking like the message out of the orange for them?
Oh, God. That was right, because I ended up going back and doing magic, because I started, obviously when I left magic to go into comedy, a great backstop is always the magic show. If I've done something so many times that I just feel these people have seen every joke and like you can repeat it. So I drag out the orange or the pom-poms or the ropes or the invisible cards or, look, as long as you entertain them, it doesn't matter what you do.
Exactly.
I used to do with Angie the big illusion shows. We'd have 5 or 6 assistants down a Magic Mountain, and you'd vanish a motorbike or, a car, as I did with Phil Cash, the illusionist. And yet people would still remember far more vividly the little card trick you did in front of them than vanishing a motorbike. So size isn't everything.
Apparently.
Like a classic for us, going back to those memories. Have you got something from Peter there?
No. That in the
It's like when we did that road trip with you and you said you have to come with us, you give me so much stick. I give everybody stick. If I'm doing a road trip with anybody, sometimes other acts or whatever, they usually, I know my nephew took me for a 3-hour drive from Sydney down to Narooma, where my sister lived, and ended up stopping about every hour just to buy a block of Cadbury to shut me up in the back seat. And he goes, "Stop and get some chocolate for Scott." And I just sit there like Magda Zabansky with chocolate all over my face and dripping. And of course, he said it was only like an hour and a half, and it was like 3 hours anyway. Thank you, Douglas.
Well, a classic for us was, I think, that first Windara Tea Rooms gig was that you had just played at the Melbourne Convention Centre the night before for about 1,500 people, flew back.
15,000 people.
15,000 people. And then we end up driving you down to Windara. But along the way, I might have got us a little bit lost, right? So we got a little bit lost, and we called into the service station for directions. And it must have been like a scene from a country cop show, because somebody had thrown a pie which hit the windscreen of the police car, and they were cleaning it. So you got out to the policeman, walked up to him and said, all right, can you give us directions how to get to the Windara Tea Rooms? And I had my window down. Oh, that's right, I was putting the window down, and the policeman who was talking to you, he couldn't help it himself but look at me and start giving me directions. And you said to the policeman, don't be talking to that idiot. He's the one that got us lost.
I would never say that about you.
No, you always say that. But it got worse because you told me they put the window back up, which I did, so it was up and coming.
Look, as many people who have been with me will attest, from my son to my wife to my family to friends and total strangers, sometimes when I'm put on the spot, I just get a bit too excited and a bit too carried away. And, even my son used to go, they'd have a great laugh over something that was happening in a public space. And then my son would go, all right, Scotty, pull it back.
Yeah, bring it back again. Because even with us, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you must have been excited when you'd introduced Peter Turin one time. He's got here, in my early days of conferencing, Scotty was the MC and introduced me to the stage as, ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome the captain of the Australian women's hockey team, Peter Turin.
Look, laughter is the best medicine. Hello, Peter Turin. What a beautiful man he is indeed. Very passionate about his work, a great speaker. And there's another one of those people, that just always hits the mark. And it's always a pleasure to catch up with him, although, nobody's conferencing at the moment.
Hence us all catching up online.
But look, I do have to say that, when it comes to our social isolation that we're doing at the moment, the thing that we've got to remember is that 15% of our laughter we experience on a daily basis comes from comedy, from a cartoon or a TV show or something that you watch. 85% of our humour and our laughter comes from social interaction with others. Also, often we've stood in a group of people, 4 or 5 of us, and had great laughs. And it wasn't jokes. It was just people talking and interacting. And you'd laugh out loud and I'd laugh out loud. Now that that's been so severely restricted, we've seen an incredible explosion of laughter and comedy on Facebook, from people doing, stand-up in their lounge room, to the memes that are floating around. Even the one I saw this morning with the dog on top of the cupboard in the kitchen, and the man holding the lead, and the dog's looking down, this German Shepherd going, I'm not going for a walk again. So, as much as sometimes people get a little frustrated with Facebook for one reason or another, at the moment it's exploding with opportunities to laugh. So try to tap into that, because we need to swell our daily comedy intake, our laughter intake. And that's why this is good, talking to you, because you make me laugh.
What is that saying of yours that, well, we laugh so many times as a child, and then by the time we become an adult, we only laugh X amount?
Well, this is it. I mean, as a child, we laugh about 300 times a day. And yet as adults, we manage to laugh about 17. So in my keynote, I addressed the fact that what happens on the road to maturity that so detrimentally impacts our ability to laugh, because laughter really is inherent in our DNA. It was once thought to be a trait that was taught to us by our parents. When we were first born, our mum or our dad would sort of stand over us and pull faces and stroke our stomach and try to cajole a smile or a wry laugh out of us. And so people thought it was a trait that we learnt. But back in, I think it was 2014,
some Swedish scientists did a study on babies that were born either deaf or blind or both. And yet it was still found that even in those children that were born both deaf and blind, that at 4 months of age, they innately started to laugh out loud. So it wasn't that they could see their parents. It wasn't that they could hear anything. So something was going on in our DNA and in our mind that at the same time, around 4 months of age, these babies started to laugh. So it's something that God's built into us.
Yeah.
He's got a sense of humor. Look at what he's created.
Yeah,
Exactly. Like another little memory lane for me, for you, it would be, I remember one time, a long time back when we were trying to put you into a conference, like to MC it for 3 days, and then the client went with somebody else. And
What?
I know.
Obviously that company's not around any longer.
Well, they are having troubles. But it was a case of, like, I phoned the lady and I was going, look, this isn't sour milk or me losing a job, but that person you brought in can be difficult to work with. And it went that way. It was difficult to work with. Yeah.
Look.
But then you were in the following year. And I remember it because it was at Twin Waters. And I've gone round to see how things were going, how the conference was going. And the lady who had booked you in came running up and gave me a huge hug and going, we love Scotty. I goes, yes, of course you do. Because I've always thought of you as like a Pied Piper. You come into a conference and they've got a million things to do, the event planners. You go, you do what you do, and then you just take over from there. And I've always described you as like...
Well, look, I'm a control freak. And B, I like to know everything that's going on. And sometimes a client will go, oh, look, you don't need to worry about this. This is just timing for housekeeping or for food and beverage or something. And I say, I don't care. Give it all to me, because the more I know, the more I can adjust on the fly. And my attitude towards emceeing has always been that there's no point in booking me as an MC if I'm just going to be another problem. I need to be able to be somebody you can hand off to, give ownership to. And if I have a problem, I'll come and find you. But in the meantime, leave it with me. And it's important then in a situation like that it doesn't all become about you. And this is where you can sometimes, as an MC, make a mistake. It's not about you. You are the conduit. You are the link between one point and another point. And when you need to be funny or you need to lighten it up because somebody's died a death or there's been a technical breakdown, then you've got to have the opportunity to be able to do that, but not just showcase yourself. I mean, I remember having one client say to me that they had an MC who shall remain nameless, not me. And I was on the following year and they said, last year was so frustrating because the MC, while very well known in Australia, was not an MC even though he claimed to be. And so he'd stand on the side of the stage and the managing director would finish and the client or the events organizer would have to run up to him and go, now, go. And he'd go up and he'd just sort of do a bit and then walk off. And as he walked off, she'd go, introduce the next person. And, so whilst it's good to have a celebrity as a host, sometimes it not necessarily as an MC. Put them in as a guest speaker or as a lunch. On a number of occasions I've done fireside chats like this where I'm sitting with Todd Woodbridge or whoever it might be because they'd rather be in a conversation than just standing there, pitching some slides. So it's much nicer to try and come up with something a little different that breaks the normal plenary pattern.
Totally. And I've always loved how you shuffle people back in. You have a great knack of getting to know people. It'll be like, Dave, come on, you're always one of the last ones in.
Yeah.
Come on, Sharon. Move along.
Personalizing it is everything. And it's the same in all business. It doesn't matter who we are. If you don't connect with your client properly, if you don't connect with the delegates, then you're only halfway there. It's the same. I do a lot of cruise ships these days, and so I love half an hour before the show. I have a large screen in some of the bigger cruise ships where we've got 1,000 people in the audience, and I put on funny bits and things that just create this opportunity to laugh before the show even starts. Yeah. So that by the time I hit the stage, they're already
such a good mood. And I have people come up afterwards and said, I loved your show and I loved the pre-show. And so that's important. All of us need to have a pre-show in whatever business we're in.
Yeah, good.
Good advice. Yeah.
Great advice. And I've seen that. I remember one time watching you, and there was a well-known sort of reporter presented, and it was very dry. It was like, the audience were like, whooshka, what happened there?
Was he a plenary speaker?
Possibly.
Possibly.
But I think it was actually from a 60 Minutes show. But then you had come on afterwards, and just everyone was in fits of laughter. It was just belly aches, and I love it when you get people who just have that laughter.
And then look, that's important. If you can read the audience and see they're dying a death. Look, it doesn't matter who you are. If you've got 45 minutes to speak for 45 minutes. Sometimes we become so enamored with who we are and what we think we know that, I'll go an hour. And at the same time, the audience are getting fidgety. We're heading towards lunch. They're getting bored. So I get closer and closer and closer to the stage until I'm nearly standing next to them, and they get the idea very quickly. It doesn't matter who you are. You don't want a managing director who's got, says I'm going to do 10 minutes and then half an hour later he's still going and you're going to throw out the rest of the day. Yeah. I'm a strict policeman when it comes to time.
Good. And then just going back to the cruise ships, I've loved.
You ever done a cruise ship?
I love some of the photographs you put on because there's some beautiful theatres in them.
Just glorious. I mean, we don't have. That's my watch saying that our time's nearly up. I'm sorry, I have 3 other speakers bureaus to talk to after you.
We're not a speakers bureau.
No, you're not. You're a direct, but that's why you're first. They're coming afterwards. But my direct clients are always my first priority. But seriously, what was the question?
As that some of the beautiful theatres you played in.
Oh yes, on the ships. That's right. I mean, we once upon a time had some lovely theatres in Australia here, but a lot of them sadly were knocked down. But you step onto some of those ships, whether it's Princess or Celebrity, some of the big ones, and you've got a 800, 900, 1,200 seater theatre sometimes, like on Majestic, and you have 3,000 people there, so you'll do 2 shows in a night, packed with 1,000 people each time, and there's nothing to beat it. Walking out, I love the 6-star ships, but the 6-star ships you might have 100 people in the audience. It's a small, intimate affair, and you work that much harder to garner the same kind of response because with 1,000 people, when somebody starts laughing, as you know, laughter's infectious, and so if you hear laughter, as I say in the show, move towards it, because even if you don't know what they're laughing about, we have something in our brain called mirror cells, and the mirror cells pick up on the positive energy or the negative energy of other people, which is why we should try and avoid miserable people, even if they're our own family members. I mean, every family has a miserable member of the family. If you think you don't, it's probably you. And so, sometimes even family can be toxic. So you've just got to not isolate yourself from them altogether, but just watch the amount of time you spend with them, friends or family, and hang around with people that make you feel good, particularly in this period of time, even if it's via FaceTime.
Indeed. That's a beautiful way to finish off here, Scotty, because we all can set people's time, like to keep it down to 20 minutes or whatever. I was going to say, would you have one last message before we sign off?
What do you call a Woolworths supermarket that's burnt down? Coles. I love that. People come up after the show and go, I've got a joke for you. And most of them are lame. But then sometimes you get something like that. What do you call a Woolworths supermarket that's burnt down? Coles. And it goes into the show. And Angie just looks like, you're not really going to say that. And I do. And they just crack up because people love to laugh. And above all, they like good, clean humour. So check out thehappyhuman.com.au. That's my website if you want to learn more about happiness and laughter. And give Donna and, what's your name? Give Donna and Gerry a call at any time just to share some time with them, because it's a wonderful opportunity to catch up.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you so much for your time, Scott.
Yeah, say hello.
It's a pleasure, and have a wonderful day, everybody. Keep smiling.
Will do.
See you, mate.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.